And I like those kind of ministries too, just like
too.
the radio ministry that we cover. You know, there's just so many ways you can reach these people, and people are hungry today.
They are.
You know, and they want to know that God's alive. They want to know that that's a true and living God.
They want peace in their life.
Yeah.
There's so much unrest in the world.
Well, there is. And, you know, so if you think you got problems in America, or even in Europe, or in Canada, you know, there's far worse places. Well, we're now on Somali Christians. This comes from International Christian Concern. You can go to persecution.org. And what this is about Somali Christians and trying to find a place to live. Everywhere they go, they wind up in trouble. And Somalia is one of those places. It's poor, and there's tons of trouble there. Often cited as the world's best example of a failed state, Somalia has for several decades suffered from lawlessness and deprivation. You know, and when they say that, lawlessness and deprivation, in other words, there's nothing there for you to eat, it's totally deprived. You know, if you had to live like that, you wouldn't like it.
Nope.
And we're talking undernourished babies, mothers with no milk, and I've literally seen this in live coverage, that we covered. And the mother is so weak that she's sitting there trying to breastfeed the baby, and she has no milk, but her breast is there next to the baby. But the baby is sitting there glassy-eyed, his eyes wide open and his mouth open. And that was the picture that I saw when when they said,
with flies on them.
Yeah, it's just horrible. So much of the country is extremely dangerous for anyone. And so this tiny Christian minority, they're in constant fear, and that's too bad.
It is.
There are thousands of Somali Christians outside Somalia. Despite having escaped their troubled homeland, they still often face isolation and danger, largely due to members of the Somali expat community who revile them for abandoning Islam. Well, that don't surprise me.
Yeah.
Few countries other than North Korea are more inhospitable towards Christianity than Somalia. And there's about 16 million in this East African nation, and almost all of them are Muslim. And the State Department says there's only 1,000 Christians in Somalia. No wonder they have trouble.
Yeah.
Now, the Somali Bible Society gives a much higher number. There's a Somali Christian in Uganda, and he agrees with the U.S. Department of State estimate. That's 1,000. He adds, though, that there are more than 5,000 Somali Christians outside of Somalia. And he says the number has grown slowly because it's not easy to preach the gospel to Somalis.
That's too bad.
Yeah. Well, what you need is miracles and signs and wonders.
Yep.
And then there's a young woman by the name of Naomi. That's a pseudonym. Nobody gives their real name when we do these. Somali Christian who helps produce Somali Christian TV says that a significant portion of Somali Christian converts become so after growing disillusioned by the widespread killing of Muslims by other Muslims in Somalia. Yeah, what does that tell you?
That's crazy.
Isn't that nuts?
Yeah. Wonder if there's the Sunni and what's the other one? The Sunni and
I can't remember.
Okay. Maybe they're killing each other.
Yeah. Ali says that evangelizing with social media has also led a considerable number of Somalis to convert to Christianity. And there is no doubt about it. If you can get, on satellite and get these people, on a receiver down there, some station that'll receive it. But it's really hard in some areas, even to get Bibles to them or anything to them, because they live in a place where there's just people wanting to kill you everywhere. So, attacks on Somali Christians are the work of Somali terrorists. That's Al-Shabaab. And that is not new. Al-Shabaab's been killing people for a long time. And, 1,000 Muslims, that's less than 1%.
Among 16 million people?
Yeah, it wouldn't even register.
No.
God. No wonder they're having trouble. And so, now, the problem you have is if you're Muslim living there, even though you may not want to support the attacks, if you don't support it, then they're going to accuse you of not being a Muslim. Of course, it's called peer pressure. So pray for these Somali Christians. And there are so many different problems out there. It's not just Somalis. Matter of fact, there are so many Christians, so many people groups that are in trouble right now. It's just mind-boggling.
Oh, it is.
And then look at America. America can't really help a lot of people because she is way in debt, she has lots of issues, and she has packed to the rafters with illegals whom the Biden administration has given money and a bunch of other stuff. And so we don't have the money to give him, but he does it anyway. So this whole thing is nothing but a troubled issue because of the people that are around us. And usually, it's the government that is causing the issues. Now, we also are covering here today Indonesia. And you remember a number of years ago when they had that flood out there, that tsunami?
Yes.
And how many people were killed?
Oh, there was close to, I know there was over 250,000 people.
Yeah. And the thing of it is that they had a lot of issues, and Christians were persecuted. A summary of Indonesia. Extremists target religious minorities in Indonesia. They exploit harsh blasphemy laws that intimidate and suppress non-Muslim beliefs. Legal barriers on places of worship hinder Christian communities from the building or maintaining churches, making them vulnerable to extremist groups. In 2022, Indonesia passed a controversial criminal code increasing penalties for blasphemy, and a lot of them have. and vaguely prohibiting evangelism affecting minority groups. President Joko Widodo, of course, this is in Indonesia, and I don't speak Indonesian, so I don't know how to pronounce it, emphasized religious freedom, but Christians often face harassment and disruptions in their worship. That is not new. It's done everywhere. Indonesia faces ongoing challenges in achieving religious pluralism, requiring comprehensive approaches, interfaith dialogue, and international support for tolerance and minority. See, all of that, I mean, if you put it on one, you're going to have to put them on all. It's almost unreal. So the Christian population here is really surprising, Tower. 29.1 million.
Wow.
And Indonesia is huge. There's really a lot of islands in it. Now, the younger generation is showing tolerance and interest. And, of course, that's Indonesia and the coverage. This is International Christian Concern here that is doing this. This little report they do, it's in depth, and they put it out every year. Public churches face persecution there, while converts from Islam must remain underground. Yeah. And that's the thing. Altogether, in Indonesia, they have 277.3 million.
Wow.
So 10% of that would be 27 million, and they have 29. So they have just over 10% Christian, which ain't much. So there's 87.2% Muslim, 7% Protestant, 2.9% Roman Catholic, 1.7% Hindu, and 1.3% other. Now, in early 2022, the president of Indonesia emphasized the importance of guaranteeing freedom of religion and worship for all citizens during his address at the National Coordination Meeting of regional heads throughout Indonesia. He stated that every religion, including Christianity, Catholicism, Hinduism, and Confucianism, holds the same right to worship as the majority Muslim population in Indonesia. Now, a lot of them say that, and they even have it in their constitution. But 9 times out of 10, Christians are killed in these places.
Yeah, the Muslims will not tolerate that kind of...
Yeah, they're not that tolerant. And so the Indonesian Constitution explicitly upholds the right to practice religion freely in Indonesia. Now, see, the problem is how you practice it. If you practice Christianity, you got to keep it to yourself, and you can't share it. I mean, there's a total word over this whole thing, how they interpret it. So you got to make sure. I mean, if you like visiting places, you better be careful and make sure you know what the laws are. And so we're not going to go through any more of this, but Indonesia has always been one of those places that is really big. It has a lot of issues, and it's really hard to govern because there's so many islands, and these people just end up doing stuff, persecution and everything.
It's horrifying.
Yeah. So at any rate, I'm done with that. Are you ready to...
Well...
Or do you think you don't have enough time?
I probably don't, but The Rising, it's a Christian fiction thriller. Pick up your copy today. One is rising among the corridors of power with legions of devotees. He knows his day has not yet arrived. He is elusive, powerful, and yet no one knows just how dangerous he is. None except